Welcome to the Next Gen Podcast. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Bryson Wright and Alex Winton. They got next, so let's get to the show.
Hello and welcome into the Next Gen Podcast here on the Bluff City Media Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Bryson Wright, and I'm joined by my co-host, Alex Winton. And, you know, this is definitely a Grizzlies podcast, and we've got a lot of Grizzlies stuff to get to. But when something as big as what happened today, as we're recording this yesterday, for the people that are watching this on YouTube, when a trade like Damian Lillard going to the Milwaukee Bucks happens, that has to be how you start the pod. And so let's just go ahead and start by giving everybody what happened. So the Bucks are getting Damian Lillard. The Trailblazers are getting Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tomani Kamara, and some picks. And then the Suns are getting Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So, like everybody, we got to start with the Bucks. And I just got to say, if there was any team that as a basketball fan you would want to see Dame go to, I think the Bucks were pretty high on the list. Now, it was one of those things where I didn't think that they were going to be able to actually get him. But if you go back even a couple years ago, there's clips of Dame saying if there's anybody that he'd want to play with, it would be Giannis. And I mean, it just makes so much sense. I mean, you've got the huge interior threat that's incredible on defense, and then a dude on the other end who just can shoot from 40 feet. And it's like just those two together. It's the same way when Giannis and Steph were playing in the All-Star game, people started talking about, should he go to the Warriors? Like all that. If you have Giannis with a dude that's that good on the perimeter, it's just insane, like what you can do on offense. And then I feel like the Bucks didn't, like obviously losing Drew Holiday, that's a big loss, especially for their culture, right? I don't think that's like Drew Holiday is a guy that's loved in the locker room and stuff like that. But basketball-wise, obviously he's a better defender, but I feel like Dame is going to make up for that with his increased shooting, because there were games where Drew Holiday in the playoffs where he was just inefficient on good open shots that he was getting off of Giannis's play. And it's like, if Dame is shooting those shots, he's not going to be as inconsistent, especially from three-point range. And I do think that wherever Drew Holiday does go, because he's not playing with the Trailblazers, if he's out there, I think he's going to make a big impact for a team. But when you have the chance to get Damian Lillard, I don't think you think twice about it, as good of a player as Drew Holiday still is. So, I mean, I think for the Bucks, if you have a chance to put Giannis and Dame together, possibly the best duo in the NBA, I'd probably say I don't know. But they haven't played together, but theoretically, they'd be the best duo in the NBA. And it's the first time ever where two players that average 30 points to pass season are now going to be on the same team. So from a scoring standpoint, like they're probably going to average the most points by any duo this year. Now, if they're the best, I don't know. I'm still giving it to Murray and Jokic right now because they did just win the finals and we haven't seen them play yet. But Dame and Giannis definitely, if it works out, which I mean, I feel like it will, if it works out, they'd be the best duo in the league.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say I got to give the Bucks credit because Giannis was saying this whole summer, not whole summer, but there were interviews where he's like, if we're not focused on winning and if, we're not seeing eye to eye with the organization, then I'll go somewhere else. And the Bucks heard that and they said, we're not going to let that happen. And I fully respect it because when you got a guy like Giannis, top three player in the league, arguably the best if you want to. I mean, obviously Jokic is right now, but Giannis was in that discussion or is in that discussion. You do, especially after you win a chip, you do what you can to keep him there. So they heard that and they were like, we're not going to let this happen. So, like, I saw this before I got to work. I was really shocked. I did not expect this at all. This is like left field. Like, because there was reports about Dame going to Miami and maybe even Toronto the last couple of days. But there was nothing about the Milwaukee Bucks. Nothing. I mean, nothing. But once I heard it, saw the details, it made sense. Like you said, I think even Dame, said something about wanting to play with Giannis or not Giannis. Giannis once said he wanted to play with Dame too. So like they both mutually wanted to say they want to play with each other. Like they're their favorite player or whatever. So, I think that's really cool. But yeah, that team is gonna be kind of like scary. Like I ain't gonna lie to you. Like them in the pick and roll is kind of like a thing that I keep thinking about to myself. I'm like, how do you guard that? Especially if with a new coach that's probably going to run more modern concepts. Like, I just think that's going to be kind of a thing where it's like, well, like it's just going to be tough because basically they're saying, hey, we're going to sacrifice some of our defense and be better offensively. That's basically what they said because they're losing Drew. Like you said, for the coaches, it's going to hurt, but their defense point of attack is going to be kind of iffy at times. But I think they're saying our rim protection is more valuable than our point of attack, which in most cases that's usually where you would want anyway. You much rather have more rim protectors than you would on ball defenders. Not saying you don't need them, but they got Giannis and Brook, so they got two guys that have been defensive player of the year candidates, so they'll be fine. But yeah, that's a good trade for them. I mean that's just gonna be a scary team.
It's crazy. No, and like the same way, it kind of was a little bit out of left field because everybody knew that Dame wanted to go to Miami, and there was a lot of stuff about is he going to go to Miami and all that. But for me, it just felt like if that was going to happen, it would have happened already. So I was starting to think that we might get like a holdout situation, like as like training camp starts like next week, basically. So I'm like, we were getting to the point to where it's like he either has to be traded or we're going to have a holdout situation. And the Heat were not willing to give up more than they made in their official offer. There have been reports that, Pat Riley didn't even go back to him after the initial offer, and they said no. He was like, okay. And he was just going to wait because he thought that no other team would trade for Dame because he knew Dame wanted to go to Miami. But I think the thing is Dame wanted to go to Miami first, but Dame also wants to win. That's the number one thing that Dame wants to do is win. And I think that even if you look compared to Miami, Milwaukee might be a better fit for him overall.
Like, it is.
Yeah, like I think it's a better fit for him overall. Now I think he would have been really good with Miami too. Both teams he would have gone on would have been championship contenders. But that's the thing. I mean, he's going to be in a better situation than he was. And then going back, because I know you mentioned Giannis also wanted to play with Dame. I saw a clip earlier today that Rob Perez posted from the All-Star game. And if you go back to the All-Star game, Giannis, he's always big on loyalty, teammates, all of this. Jrue Holiday was somebody he could have picked first. And he picked Damian Lillard as his first pick when it was the All-Star reserves. And I was like, okay. And even LeBron noted that. And he was like, oh, okay. And he was like, I wasn't familiar with this side of Giannis. And it's one of those things where, not to say that him and Jrue Holiday are going to have beef or something. It's, it's basketball. But at some point, like, once you've won that championship and then you see like all the stuff that's happening around the league and all these other moves that people are making, it's not surprising to me that he was able to say, because the front office talked. That was the first person they talked to when they thought about making this trade was, do you want Dame? And Giannis, as a guy that wants to win, I'm sure that he's still cool with Jrue Holiday, but it's like, hey, look, as good of a player as Jrue Holiday is, if you have a chance to get Damian Lillard, like I said earlier, you do it every time. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy. I did kind of want to talk about the other teams just because the other teams are in the West too, on what the Suns got and what the Trailblazers got. Not really the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers I will mention a little bit just because they are within the Grizzlies thing for the in-season tournament. So the only thing I'll really say that affects the Grizzlies is that'll make the Trailblazers games a little bit easier. Because they don't have to play against Dame. Like, that's about it. Now, I still think they got a lot of good players. I mean, they're going to have Scoot Henderson. They're going to have Anthony Simons, who has taken over CJ McCollum's role of Grizzly killer on the Trailblazers. So, and then we'll see what happens with Ayton. But they're not going to have Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday's not going to stay there. They said they're going to trade him. But I think for the Trailblazers, I mean, they're definitely going to be tanking. But I think it'll just make it a little bit easier for Grizzlies ever match up with them, obviously. But for the Suns, I feel like a lot of people have been down on this deal for the Suns, which I understand one part of it because I think defensively, Nurkic is definitely worse than Ayton. But to me, I feel like the Ayton relationship had gotten so bad, especially near the end of last season and going into that playoff run, that even without Monty Williams on the team anymore as the coach, I kind of felt like they had to move on from him because it's one of those things where having him on the team might actually be more of a detriment than trading him for somebody who might not be necessarily as good. Like, I would still say Ayton is probably a better player than Nurkic overall, But I think when you add in the fact that they also got, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, which these aren't like really good players, like they're not, but they're role players that can fill spots. And I feel like the Suns still did need some of that. So it's kind of just like they kind of just filled out their roster. Like that's what it felt like to me. And I think the fact that they lost Ayton was probably going to have to go anyway, if not this year, next year. Like I just felt like that relationship had gotten really bad. But I think they came out okay. I think they came out okay in this trade too, and maybe a little bit better, but I don't know if much better. I don't know.
Yeah, the Blazers. I want to start with the Blazers because I've been very critical of the Blazers over the past probably 3-4 years. Just because I'm not saying they're the same team, but I've seen what happened with the Grizzlies with the end of the grit and grind era, where you basically had something go on for too long, and you missed your window, and you're just still trying to hold on to it, not knowing you really kind of need to rebuild. They've been doing that, in my opinion, with the Blazers. But man, this last couple months, I gotta give them credit. This is good work. Shout out to I think Mike Smith is over there now. Shout out to him. Shout out to their whole front office. They're doing good work. For them to get Drew Holiday, even though he's not gonna play, they're gonna flip him for more assets. Get Ayton. Then not only get Ayton, they got a first round pick from the Bucks in 2029, which who knows what that could be. And I think they got a 2030 pick too. Like they got assets, and then they got a young center that can play with their young core already with Scoot, Simons, and Sharp. Like they got, and again, I'm not saying they're gonna be a good team. I think they're, not gonna make the play-in, but you can see what they're trying to build now. Like you get, it makes a lot more sense.
It's one of those teams where like 2 or 3 years now you could see them beat, like kind of like how the Thunder were a couple years ago when, like, after they made that trade for Paul George. Obviously they didn't get that same level of haul, but it's like you get a young guy like Shea in that deal that you can kind of build around. In this, it's not necessarily they're going to get DeAndre Ayton to build around, but they're adding him to the people they already want to build around. And I think that it's a team in like a couple years they could have, like, they might be a play-in team even next year. Like, I don't know. I don't think this upcoming season, but the season after that, like, there's a chance that they could do something like that. Like, they really remind me. I feel like they're going to be kind of like on that Thunder track. I don't think they have as many assets, obviously, as the Thunder had, but they have enough young players to kind of start on that trajectory, especially if Scoot Henderson turns out to be as good as I think he's going to be. So, yeah, I mean, I think that they they didn't get better overall. Obviously, you lose Damian Lillard, but I think they got better for the future. So I think that's really what they're doing, and they're rebuilding. But yeah, just a crazy day. I feel like whenever these big NBA news drops happen, it's always on the most random day you could think of. It's never when you're expecting it. And I feel like that today was just one of those days because there's a lot of traction, like you said, going to the Raptors, even so much so that Shams tweeted that Dame got traded to the Raptors. Like, he actually tweeted that he got traded to the Raptors and had to delete it because apparently the Raptors did say that they would trade for Dame, but Dame said that he didn't want to play for the Raptors and that he would probably just sit out, so he didn't make it. But, like, literally, the Raptors almost made the trade. Like, so it was kind of out of left field. It kind of reminds me kind of what happened with the Marcus Smart deal, where you hear another deal is supposed to happen, it falls through, and then quickly another team hops in and it's like, oh, okay, well, we can be a part of this. That's what it kind of reminded me of.
Yeah, I just can't. It's crazy. Also for the Suns, they got, like you said, they got a little bit of depth, but I do believe the Suns are higher on Yusuf Nurkic than I am and a lot of other people are. So we'll see how that works. Not saying Nurkic is bad, but I'm going to have to see how that develops for them. Because now, granted, they can fix this. They can still make more moves during the trade deadline. But I mean, we'll see. I think they're still good, obviously. They still got, like, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Bradley. But Yusuf Nurkic is the main trade piece. Then I got questions. I got to see the vision. That's all I'm going to say. I got to see the vision. But I still think they'll be good. They'll be a playoff team, like, of course. But yeah, this is a crazy day. I did not expect none of this. I mean, I expected some of this to come up eventually, but Dame to the Bucks, nah. I didn't have that on my bingo card. Like, I didn't have that.
I don't think
that was not there. So yeah.
But yeah, moving on to like some actual Grizzly stuff now that we got that part out of the way. There was an interview with Taylor Jenkins on NBA.com that had a lot of cool stuff that if you haven't read, I would read through it. We're not going to go obviously question by question and tell you exactly what his answers were, but there's a Q&A on NBA.com where they sat down with Taylor Jenkins and just got to talk to him a little bit about everything that happened, like going into the season, some of the stuff that they some of the stuff that people were worried about. And like starting with, obviously the Grizzlies missing Dylan Brooks and Tyus Jones to start the season, lingering injuries and stuff like that. I think that was the biggest thing for me that he kind of started with that. And he continues to be extremely excited to have Marcus Smart on the team. Like that was the thing that really jumped out to me in this interview is that Taylor Jenkins is so psyched to have Marcus Smart. As much as he did say they're going to miss Dylan and Tyus, and Smart is basically going to be having to take over both of their roles. But I feel like Taylor Jenkins, like he talked about how they feel like he's going to be a day one leader, even though it's not something they're going to even force on. They just feel like that's something that through training camp, because of the type of guy Marcus Smart is, he's just naturally going to emerge as a leader. And we can also see that he has been doing that, reaching out to the players and stuff on the team. I know, Alex, you wanted to talk about this too, the interaction between Jaylen Brown and Jaren Jackson Jr. the other day, because Jaylen Brown had tweeted had put something on Instagram with him and Marcus Smart. It was like, my brother forever. And then Jaren was like, that's my brother now. And then it was like Jaylen Brown that said he don't even like y'all. And then everybody was freaking out about that. And then so the Grizzlies had to go and post a picture of Marcus Smart and Jaren Jackson Jr. like on FaceTime together. But like, I feel like there is some animosity from Marcus Smart towards the Celtics, and it's not necessarily that he wanted to leave the Celtics, but I feel like he's the type of dude that when he gets on the team, he's just going to fit in naturally. And that's really what Taylor Jenkins said. He felt like he was going to fit naturally as a leader and as a player, and what he like, not just what he can do on the court, but also what he can do off the court, and adding more experience, somebody who's been to the finals and the conference finals, which is something that the Grizzlies haven't had a ton of on this team so far. So I think that I think that was the thing that really jumped off the page to me, was just how excited he was to actually start training camp with Marcus Smart.
I remember when Marcus Smart got introduced to the Grizzlies in Las Vegas, and I saw, obviously you were there, but I saw them. Who was it? Zach Kleiman and Taylor Jenkins. They were smiling ear, like grinning, smiling the whole time, happy. So I'm not surprised he said this. Like they clearly wanted Marcus Smart. Like they love Marcus Smart. Like this is so I mean, I think he's gonna love it here too. I think the thing with Smart, I think again he's just gonna help in a lot of different ways. But yeah, that Jaren stuff was pretty funny because I mean all of them are cool. But it just reminded me that the season's close, just like today with the trade stuff. It just reminded me the season's almost here. Like we're literally like a week away, however long. It's not a long time. Like it's just right around the corner. So I'm excited for all this because a lot of this, I'm not gonna say it's gonna come back, but like a lot of this is gonna show on the court. So especially when they match up against the Celtics and stuff like that, that's gonna be fun. Smart's gonna play with more energy. Obviously, they're gonna play with more energy, and obviously Celtics will too, just because both teams are probably both teams are some of the better teams in the league. So it's gonna be fun. But yeah, Smart, I think he's gonna help in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I'm not really too surprised by Jenkins' comments because I think he's gonna expect him to be one of the leaders of this team, even though not the main leader, because I think that's gonna be for like Bane, Jaren, and Ja. Like they've been said that, but like for him to be one of the veteran guys to help the young guys, but not only the young guys, younger guys that haven't experienced, but even the top guys, I just think he's just going to help in a lot of different ways. So I'm happy he's here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then another thing that he talked about was like, how does the end of last season kind of power this offseason, which that was one of the questions. And I also like Taylor Jenkins' answer to this because he talked about it being more of a cycle than anything of, getting the players out of the mindset of, when it's time for the regular season, when it's time for the playoffs, and the offseason being separate things and looking at it as a cycle. And it's like everything you do from the game 6 loss to the regular season is, preparing you for when you get back there. And, I like that answer as well. And then another thing that I did want to talk about is the biggest question is like, what are they going to do about Ja being out? And obviously, he didn't say exactly what they're going to do. He said that, they've talked with the players about it and that they have talked to Zach Kleiman about it and stuff like that. But I think that the Grizzlies made a pretty big statement on what they're going to do today when they put the billboard up. And that is that Desmond Bane is going to be starting at the small forward position. Like that's what's going to be happening. Now, whether that is going to be at the beginning of the season, not very sure what they're going to do at the very beginning of the season. But when Ja Morant comes back, Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane are both going to be in the starting lineup with him. I think that's pretty apparent. And I feel like his answers to these questions, even though he didn't come out right and say it, it's pretty obvious to me that that's what's going to happen, unless somebody has like a crazy jump, like unless Zaire comes out and is averaging like 12, 13 points a game or something like that. Like that would be the only thing that I could see them maybe starting Zaire and bringing Smart off the bench or something. Like, and that would be in certain matchups. But I still think that when Ja comes back from that suspension, it's definitely going to be Ja Smart Bane.
Yeah, probably is. I saw that earlier. I was like, man. And again, y'all know how I feel. I like it in spurts. I don't love it as a start lineup. But again, when you think about it, I've accepted it because, like you said, like they love Smart, so they didn't just bring Smart. I mean, now again, like you said, Zaire or Jake have a big camp, and that can change, right? Still could change, but promos and stuff, they usually tell you who's going, how they're thinking. So seeing that, I mean, I thought to myself, that's instantly what I thought. I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna start him there. Which again, it could work. Again, I'm not saying it's not gonna work. Like I've been saying, when people think I say it's not gonna work, I don't mean that like it's not. They're not gonna win games. Like they're gonna win like 50 games and be a top 4 seed. Like I've been said that. I've been consistent on that. It's just historically you don't usually see teams that small on the wings win championships. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Not saying it's impossible. Just saying the odds are against. But again, I will say this: the Nuggets were an outlier team last year. They didn't have a top 10 defense. They still won the chip. So, and granted, they got Jokic, but my point is, it's possible. It's not like I'm just doubting it all the way. But just again, but yeah, like they love Smart, bro. That little promo stuff, yeah, that kind of just told me everything I need to know. Now, granted, like you said, it could change, but I doubt it. I know what I'm expecting when Ja's back. I just know what I'm expecting. Like I know what starting lineup I'm going to probably see in December. Like I just already know. So yeah.
No, and I get the worry about it just because Bane is like 6'5", maybe 6'6" on a good day. But so like I get the worry about it. And in the past, that's something that hasn't worked a lot. I will say they've also never had a team that had 2 defensive player of the years on it. So like that dude that was starting at the 3 that was undersized. Well, I guess starting at the 2 now. Some games Marcus Smart is going to be guarding threes. Like that's going to happen a lot too. So I basically say, even though Bane is going to be starting at the 3, there's going to be some nights where he's starting at the 2. Some I feel like it's really going to be back and forth based on matchups. You know what I mean? So I guess it's just really how you think about it. But when you have Marcus Smart, I think he does change a lot of that, just because I feel like he can guard guards and wings very well. So it's like when you have a guy like that, it changes the way that you can do everything else. And then when you have a guy like Jaren on the interior, where you can funnel a lot of stuff to him as well, I think there are ways that the Grizzlies can scheme around it, and I think that they're going to be able to do it. I will say, like like, especially like the regular season, I think they're going to be fine. It might be more difficult in the playoffs, especially if they end up playing a team like the Suns, because then it's going to get difficult on who's going to guard KD in that series, because you want it to be Bane, or you want it to be Smart, most likely with what you have now. But it's like, then who you putting John, who you putting Bane on? Like there's stuff where it's like there are certain players that it's going to be difficult to match up against on the wing, just regardless of who it is. But I still think that with the roster as it's constructed right now, I think that gives them the best opportunity to win, even in the postseason too. Now, it's not as easy as it maybe would be with a traditional like guy on the wing, but I think that with the way that the roster's set up now, that's just what they're going to have to do, and they're going to have to hope that they can make it work when you add in the fact that you have, 2 defensive player of the years on the team. And I think they're going to lean on that a lot too.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of thing. It's like the roster says that's what you had probably going because it's going to be one of their better lineups. Like it's just I know that I didn't say it was going to not work because we saw last year with the Nuggets. Like they went to Bruce Brown and KCP and Jamal Murray's three guard like that worked. But again, they did it in spurts versus started, so that's why But it did work though. Like it wasn't like that. Part of the reason why they won a chip was because of that the smaller lineup. So it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it unfolds, especially with Ja being out the first 25. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's really going to make it harder to really evaluate it, just because we're not going to be able to see that until over a quarter of the way through the season. Whereas I feel like if they could come out open and night with it, and then they'd have more time to gel a little bit, that would be better. But it's just crazy that we're not going to see the probable closing lineup that's going to be the closing lineup in a lot of games, especially once you get to the postseason. Like that's probably going to be the closing lineup for the Grizzlies when they make it that part of the year, and we're not going to be able to see that until at least December. So that's why it's going to be a little bit weird. But I did want to move on to the one area that Taylor Jenkins wanted the Grizzlies to take a big step in this year. And the things that he said was, the X's and O's, trying to figure out the ways they can become more efficient on offense, more disciplined on defense. And then also he talked about the appreciation of what it takes to compete and win at the highest level. And honestly, I really liked it. That's what he said too, because I feel like there were sometimes last year, especially in the regular season, where, especially when you look at like the road record. I know that we talked about that. When you look at the road record, that shows that in those road games, they were like lackadaisical, weren't really taking it as seriously as probably they should have. That's just what it felt like watching the games. And I think that's something that Taylor Jenkins is probably pointing to, and I'm sure has talked about with the team this year. And the thing that he also said was not saying, okay, it's the playoffs, now we ramp up the intensity, but to try to have the same intensity, whether it's, preseason, regular season, playoffs. Now, obviously, once you get to the playoffs, it's always going to be a little bit different, but to at least try not to overlook games and try to keep that same mindset and keep your mind on the end goal more than the Tuesday game against the Pistons that you're playing. You know what I mean? Just think about April and May and June. Like that's what you need to be thinking about, even if it is only January. So I think that's something else that I think Taylor Jenkins is going to be trying to put into the team. And I think that the X and O's things, I think that's something that they're going to have to get better at too, just because when you look at the half-court offense at times, it's just been really difficult, especially in the postseason. And I think some of that does come down to X's and O's. Some of it comes down to the plays you decide to run and stuff like that. But that's what he said. They're looking at how they can make the offense more efficient, especially when you get to the half-court offense and the playoff time, when the defense obviously takes a whole nother step in the playoffs from the regular season as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. Again, just treating it like it's you can't just overlook, especially being bad on the road last year. I think that's kind of a big thing that they have to do. Because you can't really just do that all the time. Like again, like last year, that was a big thing. They overlooked teams and they really got, it really ended up coming to bite them or come back to bite them. So it's kind of like, you really have to take those things serious. But yeah, I mean, I'm confident that I think, they'll figure it out. Cause again, they are a young group. So they do feel like they can just kind of walk into these games and win them at times. But I do think that, that change will happen this year. Like there'll be more of a shift. You'll see more of what they did when they won 56 games versus what they did last year. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, I hope so. Like that's all you can really hope going into the year, is that it'll be more like that. But yeah, like I said, the full interview is on NBA.com, and I think it came out like probably about a week ago now. But it's going to be up all season, so if you want to go look at that, I can also add the link in the description to this video if you want to find the full interview. But the last thing that we are going to talk about today is Ja Morant back out in the community and stuff like that. Kind of feels like this is kind of like the redemption arc time for Ja, and he's kind of starting to especially with Nike and stuff like that, with the shoes and stuff dropping, they're kind of trying to like not necessarily completely rebuild his image, but like that's kind of what it feels like. And I think one of the things that they're doing is starting to get him back out with the kids and stuff like that. And one of the things that he was doing was he was coaching at one of the camps in Memphis, and that's something that Ja did over the last week. And I thought it was really cool. So we've got a video that we can show you guys, and then we can talk about it after.
I'm about to head over to the court and ball out with the kids. Let's go. Believe in yourself, having confidence in yourself can be a lot of outside stuff that can distract you from your ultimate goal. Just stay locked in, tune it out, and stay true to yourself. I also got everybody else a pair of Ja 1s and stuff over there. Everybody who was a part to make this possible, thank y'all as well.
And shout out T Morant too, because T Morant was in there dancing at the end of the video too. But I just thought that was pretty cool. It's good to see that he can kind of go back out in the community and stuff like that without, I feel like when all this stuff with the Instagram Live and all that first happened, it felt like there was kind of a cloud over everything. Now that we're like a couple months out of it, not to say that people forgot about it, but obviously like that's just kind of how the world is. After a couple months, people move on. So I think that's what it is. People have started to move on, and I feel like he can kind of start going back out and doing stuff that he was usually doing before that didn't get as much kind of social interaction and stuff like that as it will now. But I just think it's good that he can kind of try to put that behind him, and I think stuff like that is something that is going to be really good for him just going forward. And then just kind of getting back to like, even giving advice to the kids based on what he's learned and stuff like that is good too. Because he said that in the video talking about staying locked in. There's going to be a lot of stuff trying to distract you from your ultimate goal and stuff like that. So I think all of that is just good signs. And I think it's good going forward to see more of this side of Ja, especially when it does feel like the media has, like for good reason, has been on him a lot for the last couple months. So it's good to see like more good press coming out there and everything like that.
Yeah, Nike has kind of been pushing Ja. I'm gonna say pushing Ja, but like he's been making public appearances the last couple weeks because I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is like the second thing they posted about him. Or not second thing posted, but second thing I've seen Nike related. Because if I'm not mistaken, he was at like an event like a week or two ago about it. So, or I think in New York or something like that. So like I think that's
he was there in New York, and they showed it was him and Dirk and a bunch of other people were there too.
Like Victor, all them. So so he was there, had the Nike apparel on, then also in this one. So and also he has a new shoe coming out, or I mean same shoe, but a different colorway and stuff like that. So I think that's cool to see. I mean that like Nike, they're starting to ramp back up because even though he won't be playing the first 25. I mean, he'll still be like, December will be here before you know it. So it's kind of like, now it's kind of start, especially basketball season's finna start. So they understand that, hey, he's got shoes to sit. Like they understand, they understand the market. So, but to see, him surprise those kids is pretty cool. That's again, this is press that you hope to see from Ja going forward, which I mean, I expect. They're not going to put anything bad out. Obviously, going forward, because they're trying to rebuild an image or rebrand, however you want to say it. They're going to be doing that for Ja Morant over the next few months or even year per se. So but it was cool to see him, be with the kids and do stuff like that because it's kind of been he's been off the map. So it's like only people that really probably seen Ja is people that work with him every day, and obviously some Grizzly teammates, because we saw Roddy and Gigi Jackson and those people, but those guys hoop together. But outside of that, nobody's really seen Ja. Like, I mean, and people that, when he went on that vacation, but outside of that, like it's been probably the same people he's seen like every day, which I mean, it's, it's good. He's out the way, but I think it is cool to see him do the camp because he has done a camp like every year. So it's kind of, to see him, even though this wasn't the same camp, it was cool to see him do one for, like a surprise camp for the kids. So, I mean, it's cool to see Ja doing that. I think it's going to be, again, he'll be back before you know it. I mean, and yeah, I mean, just it's cool. It's great. It's great to see. Nike's going to keep pushing the shoes. Also, I need to get a new pair. I need to get a pair of Jot ones. I just gotta say that on the pod. Yeah, I need a pair of Jot ones,
Definitely, you got to get one.
especially the
they're
new
good.
ones.
So, no, the new ones are nice. So the ones I got the red ones. I thought they were pretty cool. They feel good. I play basketball in them too, and they feel good. But I thought that was the coolest part is all the kids are going to get a new pair of shoes. I thought that was pretty cool. I think that might have been my favorite part of the video is hearing that too, especially because I'm pretty sure that was in Memphis too. So it's good
Yeah,
that
it
he's
was.
doing that, in the Memphis community specifically, because obviously it's still cool to give out free stuff wherever you are. But I just think, especially when it's in the community that you play in, I think it just means a little bit more, just like especially to the kids, because these are kids that they might come to the game in the Jaw ones in a couple months. Like that might be like something that could happen. Like these are the kids that you might see, or you might go and talk to them at their school or something. Like there's a lot of stuff that could happen. So it's like, I think it's good to be in the community with the kids from where you're playing at. And I just think that's really cool. But yeah, so yeah, just shout out to Josh, shout out to the whole kind of, like you said, rebuilding his image and everything like that, kind of going into a new arc going into this year, trying to rehab and rebuild everything that kind of happened before all the stuff that happened with the Instagram Live and everything. So I just think that it's good for him to be getting back to this kind of stuff. And then, like you said, he's at a camp every year, hasn't had to have a camp this year. And also, I just feel like you said, they haven't seen a lot of Ja this entire summer, which, like you said, is a good thing. But the past off seasons, we've been used to being able to track his off-season progress and like kind of stuff like that, because he was playing in some of these runs and stuff that you would see on YouTube, where this year where you saw a lot of other guys. And I think the only Grizzlies player that was there was Josh Christopher. But it's like you see a lot of NBA players go to these runs, and he's a guy that usually had gone to those in the past, and there have been videos of him there. But just the entire summer kind of took a step back. So it's good to kind of see him back out, like you said. But yeah, all in all, I'm just happy that he can kind of get back to normal a little bit. And that's just going to be the biggest thing going into the season. One thing from the Coach Jenkins interview, they asked him if Ja's going to be able to use the facility while he's suspended. They said they do not know yet. They're still trying to figure that out. I would hope that he can be at least somewhat close to the team. I know usually with suspensions, you're not able to, but I feel like this is kind of a unique scenario. So, like, I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any difference, but I feel like having him using the practice facility, maybe, I mean, probably not participating in training camp, obviously, but maybe just being allowed to be there would be good. But then again, I don't know exactly what the NBA's rules are on suspensions. I know usually you're not allowed to do that, but but Taylor Jenkins said they've been talking about it, so we'll probably hear about that coming up soon.
Yeah, that will be interesting because I think, it would benefit them if he can use the facility, just because, again, he's going to be there every day. They're going to see him, like, just from a chemistry perspective, that'll help. But obviously, just from a standpoint of using team facilities is going to help him too, because, obviously it's different to use your own facilities that you have versus the team facility. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a question they're probably going to ask him next week, because media day is, I think, October 2nd. So they're probably somebody's going to ask, again, it's going to be, he's not going to be, John's not
No,
going to
see,
be there.
that was my thing. Is I'm like, can he participate in media day? Like, I assume he can, but like,
I don't think he's going to be. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be there. I would be surprised.
that's
if
what I'm
he's there.
saying. Like, yeah, I don't think he's gonna be there, but I don't know what all the rules are on that. So that's probably what they're talking with the NBA about now.
Yeah, like it's kind of murky. So, but I mean, again, either way, even if he ain't there, they're gonna talk about it. Like it's gonna be talked about. Like they're gonna be like, how do you navigate the job? Like I already know, and obviously we'll be here to talk about it because that won't be the only thing they'll talk about. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. We'll probably get an answer next week. They'll. I hope if somebody asks that question, because that is an interesting question. Because again, that's like the little stuff. Like you said, it's a unique situation. Usually, people are away from the facility and stuff like that, but this is more of a unique kind of situation. So that little intricacy right there is kind of going to be, interesting to see how it rolls out. Because again, I don't think it's going to be too big of a difference, but it's something interesting to watch. You know what I mean? So yeah.
But yeah, like we said, so media day is going to be coming up next week on October 2nd. So for our next episode, we're going to be bringing you everything that we can talk about in however long it takes on Grizzlies Media Day. Just going to have a full media day episode, talk about everything that they talked about going into the season, going into training camp, see if we can get some clips and stuff for y'all again, like always. But like I always say, thank you to everybody who listened to this episode of the Next Gen Podcast here on the Bluff City Media Podcast Network. For my co-host, Alex Winton, I'm Bryson Wright, and we'll see y'all next week with everything from Grizzlies Media Day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Gen Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like and a comment wherever you download your podcasts. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co, where you will find comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports and how you can become an insider. We'll see you back here next time.